Hi there. Let's do a quick little tingling here before we begin. Before I do say what I want to say, let me preface this by saying that what I'm about to say is in no way, shape, or form supposed to be hate towards any of the queens. It's not supposed to encourage anybody to message, tweet, or comment on any of the queens' posts, anything rude. It is just a way to start a conversation. In the last couple of months, there have been certain allegations about Sharon needles. I say allegations for legal reasons. Due to this, many people have been commenting that I should replace Sharon with another queen in these videos. And along the similar lines, people just in general were confused why some queens were part of the Heroes team when in real life they are, oh my god, cancelled. Even though I thoroughly explained in my first Heroes vs Villains video that we're looking at these people as drag characters that appeared on the TV show called RuPaul's Drag Race. Ever heard of it? And how they were presented to us then and there. I hear some of you raising a valid counterpoint that we should not separate the character from the person. And you know what? I agree. Which is why I assume that you don't listen to Dua Lipa's music because she supports, profits off of, and promotes genocide of Serbian people. And you don't retweet random tweets about how iconic Paris Hilton is because, you know, she voted for Trump in 2016, right? You don't do that. Of course you don't. You're morally higher than the rest of us, even though what I'm doing here is simply a fantasy scenario. So, in order to show you logical fallacies in your cancelling of other people, but not to compare them to the allegations made against Sharon, let me go full social justice warrior on you, and let me ask you why you ignored the fact that PhiPhi O'Hara murdered animals on stage. The fact that Bianca Del Rio makes one offensive joke per week that will have at least one person want to cancel her. Katya recently asking Bob the drag queen if she were bi just because one of her boyfriends was a trans man. It's on the Bald and the Beautiful podcast, 28 minutes into the episode with Bob. Look it up. But also the fact that she, oh, what was it? Fetishizes lesbians, says DYKE, just like whenever, and so on and so on. And let's not stop at the heroes. Let's call you out on your hypocrisy with some of the queens that are on the villains team too. So PhiPhi O'Hara, making that one joke where she referred to Dita and Latrice as the help on season 4, the vixen using Sahara Davenport's death against Manila, Tyra Sanchez, you know what she did. Willam doing blackface, being in his like 60s and still needing Alaska on Race Chaser to tell her weekly if what she said was or was not offensive, and so on and so on. Oh, also, what happened to those allegations that Katya and Willam allegedly sexually assaulted a drunk guy during one of Alaska's vlogs? I mean, there was no backlash against the two when that guy's boyfriend came out with that story back in March. And after doing some research, I saw that guy deleted a lot of his tweets, almost all of them, about that, and made his Instagram private, and even deleted the tweets that he sent me about the matter. So I'm not sure how true this is, but it's still worth noting as I don't remember y'all believing the victim. Because I guess it's believe the victims, unless the accused is a popular drag queen. If you're going to act morally superior, then don't be selective about it. Alrighty, now we can begin with the video. Back when I did episode 2 of Heroes vs Villains, I asked you to send me a drawing or anything of the sort of how you imagine some of the looks that I mentioned in that video. So we have a couple of looks of what Dela would have worn. This last one is my absolute favorite. Somebody also drew Naomi's possible look. However, since this was done in May, the person behind the account has now changed their username and I couldn't find a new one. So if you do see this and you did draw this, please message me on Instagram so I can credit you properly. The episode begins with the heroes, this time first in the workroom, pondering on who could have been eliminated. Tatianna almost immediately says that she hopes Tyra is out, but the other girls aren't really agreeing with her. Asia does mention that she did see Willam and Alaska being very negative about their roles, but Katya doesn't think such strong competitors would have been the first eliminated ones from their team. To which Yara says that that's exactly why one of them should be the first one out, so that the heroes have a higher chance at winning. The villains start coming into the workroom and most queens are shocked to see Willam out, but we do get a confessional from Bianca saying that she isn't that surprised because she too saw Willam being pissy about her role, and that's not the way to play the game. Alaska tells the heroes that she was in the bottom 2 with Willam, and Bob says that he's kinda glad that another winner also lip-synced for their life. Tyra chimes in and says that Alaska is not really a winner as she won an All-Star season. We get a couple of quick shots of Queen's reactions and then a Tatianna confessional saying, Tyra's right. Cue the theme song. We continue on from the cold open with a message from Ru that goes something like this. To drag or not to drag? That is the question. Whether it is nobler in the drag to suffer the wigs and tucks of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of fans, and by opposing, end them. Ladies, are you a good thespian or a bad thespian? The queens immediately realize that the maxi challenge will have to do with acting. Ru comes in and tells the girls exactly that. This week they have an acting challenge, and Raja says that Willam is fuming watching this episode at home. The queens are given only a single sheet of paper where they are told that they have to write a 5-minute pilot for a sitcom. They have to come up with all 9 characters, the main story, and, of course, they have to learn their lines that they write themselves. The heroes team for the second week in a row more or less willingly lets BenDeLaCreme and Jinkx Monsoon take over as, again, more or less team captains and curate everything. Bianca, Bob, and Sharon are helping them with the jokes, while the rest of the queens are coming up with the looks. Tatianna does feel a little on the outs, as she's not the strongest seamstress next to Asia, Katya, and Yara, but they still make her feel like part of the team as she has the most marketable look to the wider audience, and they do recognize that as being important for a pilot. They're going for the Mary Tyler Moore show vibe with a bit of Golden Girls sprinkled in there. The villains team is running more or less smoothly as well. They chose a more open approach to their script, as in they would mostly bounce off of each other, with not that strong of a script where they know what to do beat for beat, but this approach in the workroom seems to work and seems to go really well for them. They're throwing jokes at each other, almost everybody's involved, but they do decide to divide their team into 3 little groups of 3 so that it isn't too clustered. They all kind of get to be the leads of their stories, so nobody seems to be complaining. When Ru does the walkthroughs, he's pretty impressed with what both teams got to do in such a short amount of time, to which we get a confessional from Raven saying, yeah, surprise surprise, the queens perform better when we're left to our own devices. Once Ru's gone, the queens continue working and preparing for their scenes. The filming goes, again, more or less smoothly as well. The villains, as the losers of the last week's challenge, have to film first, but they don't have much trouble with the whole process. As I've said, they divided themselves into 3 different teams, based on who vibes the best with whom. So, in the first team, we have Raja, Raven, and Tyra as the early season queens, but also Raja and Raven know each other very well. The dynamic between Raven and Tyra is not really the best, but Raja as a mediator kind of makes it work. PhiPhi, Alaska, and Roxxxy are together next, as they all have certain relations to each other, and were, of course, all on All Stars 2 together, and they're working well as well. And then Akira, the Vixen, and Naomi have a weird dynamic that looks like it shouldn't work, but they seem to bring in the most laughs from the rest of the queens, but not as many laughs from, let's say, Mindy Kaling, who's helping them out in the process. Sure, here and there a queen takes a little too long to come up with a comeback, but all in all, it's nothing horrible, and they believe that that will be cut in the editing. The heroes as well do well, like they follow their script, they alternate in the scenes so that nobody stays in for too long and everybody has a moment to shine. Sometimes one of the 4 queens that were preparing the looks for the scenes will forget their lines as they had less time with them, but they'll quickly get back on track. Their pilot is kind of centered around Bianca and Bob as 2 New Yorkers, and then Jinkx and BenDeLaCreme as 2 characters from Seattle living together, and the rest are kind of recurring or guest characters. The main 4 are portraying characters are even older than them, so they're very snappy with their jokes. The next day, the queens are in the workroom getting ready for the runway. The runway team is basically recreating or redoing popular looks from TV shows, with the idea that the heroes can do TV show protagonists looks and the villains, of course, antagonists looks. I can see a whole lot of looks from Dynasty on both ends, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a look or 2 inspired by Fran Drescher in The Nanny. While they're getting ready, Bob and Alaska are asked how it felt to lip sync against their teammates and on such a star-studded season. Bob shows more confidence than Alaska, saying that she knew for sure that she was going to win, and that this one bottom 2 placement doesn't mean much to her, as she had already been in the bottom 2 on season 8 and she still won that season. Alaska said that that was her first time lip syncing for her life and that it was nerve-wracking. When she lip-synced on All Stars, she of course wanted to win, but she knew that if she hadn't won, she wouldn't have lost much. Katya maybe throws a jab at her, asking Alaska if she licked Willam during their lip-sync, and all the queens laugh. The Vixen, as one of the queens that lip-synced for her life the most, agrees with Alaska that it's very stressful and that it literally feels like you're lip-syncing for your life. Now it's time for the runway. Like with the last video, if you want to, please do share your artwork of whichever of the 18 queens in whichever look you think they do for the runway. You know where to send those, either Twitter or Instagram, but honestly, email works too. Alongside Mindy, this week the guest judge is also Phoebe from Fleabag. This time, first the villains walk the runway. We watch their pilot, they're sent back to Untucked, and then the heroes do the same thing. The villains pilot is basically 3 different scenes in one, where the 3 scenes actually include the same 3 characters, but at different times in their lives. First, Akira, Naomi, and the Vixen are the characters at their youngest. Alaska, Roxxxy, and PhiPhi are kind of there in the middle, while Tyra, Raven, and Raja are them as older queens. The comedy of some of the characters changing races between scenes is not lost on us. It makes it funnier even. And this goes over well with the judges for the most part. The hero scene is more classically sitcom-esque, and it also goes well with the judges. It's very Golden Girls meets Friends meets a little bit of SNL during its prime, not now, and it's full of jokes. After this is done, both teams are on the stage, and Ru announces the winning team, which is the heroes team, with the winner being Bob the drag queen. Bianca side-eyeing Bob when she won is shown. All of the rest of the heroes are high, and they are done with this episode. We see Tatianna being very relieved that her team won because she thought that she didn't do well and that her character was too small in their scene. The villains team is up for elimination. Ru first tells the queens that he really enjoyed their scene and that it was a very hard decision on who was going to win. Ultimately, the villains team seemed a little disjointed with their scenes, as in the characters weren't all portrayed the same. They liked the idea, but not really for a 20-minute long sitcom. Maybe for like a Netflix show. First, Roxxxy, Alaska, and PhiPhi are praised for their dynamic and for their jokes, as they seemed like the strongest threesome. It pains me to say this, but Ross Matthews would now then probably throw in a joke about never being in a strong threesome. Their looks are also praised for being well executed and fun. Raja is also praised for her look, and she's even told that her look is one of the best on the runway, and that she was also a really good performer in the sketch, playing a great mediator between Raven and Tyra. Her 2 co-stars, let's call them that, don't get the same treatment. Both Raven and Tyra are told that, while having good looks, their dynamic in the scene wasn't really the best, nor did their sketch have many jokes. To the judges, it seemed like they were just being catty for like 2 minutes. And the last trio of Akira, Naomi, and the Vixen, while having good chemistry in the workroom, it didn't really seem to translate well in the scene, especially because Akira seemed to pummel the other 2 with her Latrice as prison guard-esque performance. Naomi and the Vixen also both were told that their looks on the runway were just a little too simple. Naomi especially being told that it seemed like she was just wearing a costume of a character. You know what they say. Wear a Cher Halloween costume once and get away with it. Shame on you. Wear a Cher Halloween costume the 2nd time and get away with it. Shame on me. Wear a Halloween costume for the 3rd time. Well, you know where this is going. Silence. I've made my decision. Bring back my villains. Welcome back, ladies. When I call your name, please step forward. Alaska, PhiPhi O'Hara, Roxxxy Andrews. Great work this week. You're all safe. Akira, Raja. Good job this week. You 2 are also safe. Naomi Smalls. Your performance in the acting challenge was not a treat, and on the runway, you were not able to trick the judges again. I'm sorry, my dear, but you're up for elimination. Tyra Sanchez. On season 2, you won the first acting challenge, and on the runway, you gave us 3 looks in one. Stop relying on your previous glory. You're safe. The Vixen. You may have come here to fight, but you sure as hell did not come here to act. Raven. You have a great beat, but the judges wished in the challenge you were more upbeat. The Vixen, I'm sorry my dear, but you're up for elimination. Raven, you may join the other girls. Naomi and the Vixen are in the bottom two. They have to lip sync to Rihanna's Take a Bow from her album Good Girl Gone Bad. You know, cause they're villains. And Take a Bow because, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. This was the acting challenge episode. And both of the queens do pretty well, you know, as expected. They're both good performers. They both flawlessly convey Rihanna's attitude in the song, and it's a very enjoyable lip sync to a slower song, but not a ballad, which can be a rarity on the show. Ladies, I've made my decision. Naomi Smalls, Shantay you stay. The Vixen, sashay away. And that's it. That's the video, or rather, the episode. Did you expect this sort of outcome? I went with that thing where the producers give us basically no hints on who's going home, but I couldn't really leave it to just that and give the Vixen no time on this fictional episode. That would be a little too much. No, thank you for watching.